Today, my presentation is focusing on the potential of UAV-based sun-induced chlorophyll fluorescence to detect water stress in the superbit field. I want to introduce the research background first. So now we all know that the water stress happens more frequently and more seriously due to the climate change. And the water stress, it can cause water stress, it can cause crop with structural changes and leaf biochemical changes, as well as physiological changes. And these changes will also cause a reduction in the photosynthesis. We know that the photosynthesis can convert the sunlight energy into chemical energy stored in the plant. So, and then the decrease of the photosynthesis will reduce the crop yield. Therefore, water stress is a threat of the world food security. So, to manage the crop. The crop under water stress very well. Also to guarantee the food security, it is very important to understand the photosynthesis activities under the water stress. However, to get photosynthetic parameters over the field is not very easy or not feasible. Fortunately, now we have sun-induced chlorophyll fluorescence. It can provide us better understanding of photosynthetic activities at the large level. So let me introduce the fluorescence and chlorophyll fluorescence. Hereafter, we call it SIF for brief. So when light is observed by crop leaves, more specifically, it is chlorophyll, leaf chlorophyll, and it has three pathways. The first one is most energy goes to the photosynthesis, and some energy goes to the heat emission. It can use non-photochemical quenching, NPQ, to describe. And a small part of the energy is remitted as chlorophyll fluorescence. Here we call it SIF. We can using remote sensing techniques to detect the SIF. It is a signal included in the reflected radiance, but it is only a very small portion, 1 to 5%. In the far right region. And the SIF, it can be retrieved at 607 nanometers and 706 nanometers at the the SIF retrieved as this two positions are usually used now in our research. Well, this is a research question after the research background. Since now we are collecting at the top of canopy SIF, but at the top of canopy SIF, it has three components. So the first one is EPA, is observed sunlight by chlorophyll. The second one is ΦF, it is the physiological fluorescence emission yield. At the so this is the fraction of the observed sunlight remitted as fluorescence signal at the leaf level. So this signal is directly linked to, if you see this figure here, linked to photosynthesis and heat emission, that is NPQ. So this one, it can directly indicate physiological changes. And the third one is, we call it fluorescence escape ratio. So this one is the emitted the fluorescence photons at the leaf level escape from the canopy level. So it can be affected by canopy structure or the leaf pigment. So therefore, because SIF observations at the canopy level, they can be affected by the canopy, the structural changes, and also the leaf biochemical changes on a path and the fluorescence and the fluorescence escape ratio under water stress. So we need to decouple. We need to decouple this response from the physiological response. Before we do that, this work is going to explore. So the question is that the physiological response of top of canopy SIF to water stress at the field level still remains unclear due to this coupling effects. Then we have UAV. UAV are flexible platforms, can provide high temporal SIF measurements at the field level, so that can provide us an opportunity to explore the relationship between the physiological SIF response to the photosynthetic activities at the field level. This is a methodology part. We conducted the field campaign in sugar beet field. We had 3 irrigated plots. These 3 and the 3 non-irrigated plots as a control plot. And we give irrigation on the evenings on June 27 and July 23rd. So we acquired the data around the solar noon under clear weather conditions on June 27. This is before irrigation, and June 28. Also in July 23 and July 24th. So the SIF measurement was acquired by UAV-based fluorescence spike, which has a range from 630 to 800 nanometers. To assist the interpretation of SIF, we also acquired linear hyperspectral data and also the thermal data. During our field campaign, we happened to have 2 different stress conditions. In June, on June 27 and the 20. Sorry. On June 27 and June 28, we see the temperature was not very high, and the source moisture was quite low. So at this case, the sugar beet were only suffering water stress. However, on June 23 and 24th, the temperature was very high. And also the soil moisture was low. So sugar beet plants at that time, they suffered both the water stress and the heat wave stress. Even after the irrigation that we see just on June 28th, the sugar beet recovered much better than July 24th after the irrigation. So we selected some parameters to evaluate their performance in water stress detection. So because we are more interested in the physiological response of crop, because this is linked to the photosynthesis, then we applied SIF yield and the fluorescence emission yield at 760, also SIFratio. For SIF yield, we can see from this formula, it can remove PA and FAPA. So this parameter can account for the illumination conditions and also the structural part of the structural effect, and also leave it biochemical effect on FAPA. For the say for fluorescence escape ratio, we already explained, it is directly related to the physiological changes in the underwater stress. And the SIF ratio calls it SIF at 670 and SIF at 760. They are sensitive, differently sensitive to photosystem 2 and photosystem 1. So this ratio can give us further insight into the contribution from the fluorescence emission in these two photosystems. Also, to improve our understanding of these SIF-related parameters, we select NDVI to indicate canopy structure, PRI to indicate the heat emission, NPQ, and also canopy temperature, which is an indicator of leaf with a stomatal conductance. Let's look at the interesting results. So this slide is a spatial pattern of the some indices that we evaluate. So firstly, for the red figure, it is the NDVI and the canopy temperature on the 4 experimental days. So we see NDVI and canopy temperature maps show clear irrigation treatment, irrigation effect. So the NDVI and the canopy temperature values were lower in irrigated plots here, we see here, and than non-irrigated plots, like this part. SIF canopy SIF at 760 and 678. Also, it shows the special pattern, but it shows more the special variations. For example, if we just look at the this, for example, this plot, so we see the more variations in its spatial pattern compared with NDVI or canopy temperature. Also, we can see SIF in June it was higher than the SIF in July, and it might be due to the PA on June on June and July, also due to the stress severity, because in July case we had the combined severe water stress and heat wave stress. So from these two figures, it shows can give us whether the assessment of this parameter performance, but we can not directly see the changes between in these indices between irrigation and after irrigation. Then we using delta value to further look at these changes. So the delta value is the value before irrigation minus the value the value after irrigation minus the value before irrigation. Then here we focusing on the physiological parameters, SIF yield, and also the fluorescence emission yield, also SIF ratio. So we can see from these two figures A and B, the SIF yield had a decrease both in irrigated and non-irrigated plots, same to fluorescence emission yield. So for the water stressed plant, this is because they close the stomatal conductance to stop the more water loose. Then the reduced stomatal conductance can indicate the CO2 intake. So as a result, NPQ is triggered to disseminate more energy than fluorescence can decrease. And for the SIF in the irrigated plot, it also the decrease that might be due to the NPQ increase. The NPQ in the irrigated plot is also triggered to cope with the higher temperature on the second day. So we see a decrease in the fluorescence. But we see the fluorescence yield that has a larger decrease in irrigated plot than non-irrigated plot. So we suppose it should be related to the fluorescence escape ratio here. And more research should be conducted to look at this parameter. And if we look at the changes in indicators in July, we found an interesting result because the SIF yield and also the fluorescence emission yield at the 760 all increased under this stress condition. However, in July, we see the decrease. Then this is very interesting. It also showing that the SIF is very complex to interpret and can be affected by the many factors. On the severe stress, this can happen because in the photo systems can be photo inhibited or the photo damaged. As a result, NPQ is triggered and it can reach its maximum. After that, as energy, some of the energy that goes to the fluorescence emission. So we see the increase in SIF yield and also the ΦF. That is the fluorescence emission yield. Then we can infer that the response of SIF indicators depend on the stress and the stress levels. The NDVI, from the NDVI, we also know on the stress, the severe stress conditions. Even after the irrigation, in the irrigated plot, the sugar beet plants still have a decreased NDVI value. That means they did not fully recovered. To know better on this SIF indicators, their response to water stress, we also tested the irrigation effect on these parameters. And then we found on June in the 27, in June case, the irrigation treatment was significantly affected these SIF indicators. However, in July case, only fluorescence emission yield as 760 and the SIFratio weekly tracked the changes after the irrigation. So also we see the fluorescence emission yield was more sensitive than SIF yield at 760 in June and also in July. So that stress the necessity to remove the effect of canopy structural changes from the top of canopy SIF measurements. Some take-home messages. And we found the selected SIF indicators were able to track the drought recovery after irrigation in June. However, the top of canopy, the SIF indicator values to detect the changes of the photosynthetic activities under severe stress need more investigation. And the fluorescence emission yield was more sensitive to drought than the apparent SIF yield. So correcting the structural effect when interpreting the SIF response is very necessary. Okay, thank you very much. I finished that.